And the shaila is like this. I think it's pretty well known. People know that there is such a halacha, Metzer she'echziku be'rabim, asur lekalkale. That once the public has made a chazaka that they uh, use a certain shortcut, a certain path, even though it's across a piece of private property, so the property owner is not allowed to shut it down. He's not allowed to close it or block it off or do whatever it is. So our goal today is to explore the parameters of this din and to understand if it's true that your tack is stuck forever. There's a shortcut on your property. There's nothing you can do about it, and to see if there is any way out or if it's taka. Um, that's how it is. However, before we get there, that's going to be in Sif Lamed Gimel. Before we get there, we have to learn Sif Lamed Beis, which is pretty short, um, pretty self-explanatory. We'll just read it inside and add a few comments. Sif Lamed Beis says as follows: Hamasik will re'eyu, a person who relocates the border of a fellow man's property. In other words, they take you have your property and neighbors your neighbor's property, and you take the border, take the fence, and you move it back a foot or 2 feet or 10 feet. Um, so that's called being a masig gvul. Afilu m'lo yatzba, even a finger breadth. Im bechaz ka'asa. So if you did it by force in public, is a gazlan. So that's a gazlan. Everybody knows a gazlan is somebody who steals with no shame, who steals brazenly and publicly. So that's a gazlan. V'im hisik b'seiser. If you did it in the middle of the night while your neighbor was away, so then that's called a ganev. Is a ganev. Okay, so just like there's Gezeilah and U'Geneivah in with money and with metaltalin, with movable property, so too there's Geniva and Gezeilah with karka, with land. Even though karka ain't an exelis, karka ain't an exelis means there's no such thing as yeyush and shinui rishus by karka as there is by metaltalin. But there is an isser of stealing by karka. If you didn't understand what I meant just now by yesh and shin rishus by karka and by metaltalin, doesn't matter. Don't get stuck on it. Um, there is an isser gneva and gzela by karka. But by karka, by land, there's another issue, which the Alter Rebbe has over here. But in Beretz Yisrael hisagagvul, if this act of theft of property happened in Eretz Yisrael over b'shnei lavin, then one violates two lavin. One is belav gneva gzela, either gneva or gzela, depending on the situation, whether it was publicly or privately, meaning secretly. And additionally, in Eretz Yisrael, ubelei sasig gvul reyachav gamer ba'aretz. There's a special isser of hasagas gvul that only applies in Eretz Yisrael. Somebody who steals property, who moves their neighbor's border in Eretz Yisrael is over on an isser of leisasig gvul reyachav. And the pasuk continues, it's only an Israel applies, especially to Eretz Yisrael. Now, there are a few interesting diukim here in the Alter Rebbe, which fortunately we don't have time to get into all of them. But just one very interesting thing to point out. Two interesting things, actually. Number one is their Advaz points out. Their Advaz is in a tshuva in Chelik Dal Tzimin Taf Shin Chavav. He says, Margala b'pamaya de inchi, people are accustomed to say, the Karen l'kayetza hasagas gvul. They refer to interfering with another person's livelihood, whatever, in context over there, that's what he's talking about, as hasagas gvul. Based if interfering with another person's livelihood is called hasagas gvul, so then the Torah says that a person gets a special curse for being a masig gvul. Arur masig gvul re'eyu. And the Torah says, so if Arur masig gvul re'eyu applies to not to physically stealing land, to being masig gvul, to moving a gvul, but to interfering with another person's uh, metaphorical gvul, their their livelihood, so then they also get a curse. So their advice says, but really it's not true. Really, hasagas gvul deraisa only refers to stealing property, and only that's where you get what a person gets the urer masig gvul is uh is called hasagas gvul. So two things to point out over here. Number one, their advice says margala b'pamaya deinshi that people call interfering with another person's livelihood hasagas gvul. So I don't know who he was referring to, but it's not stam people, not stam amaratzim who say that. The Rama in the Darkei Moshe and in the Shulchan Aruch adds a comment over here in this siman, which talks about hasagas gvul with karka, which is siman shin ayin vav in Cheshem Mishpat. He says, by the way, also see in earlier in siman kuf nun vav where we talked about the other type of hasagas gvul. Number one. Number two, the Alter Rebbe, even over here he's talking about a masig gvul specifically in karka. There's another set of halachas in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch and Cheshem Mishpat called Hilchos Hefker v'hasagas gvul. And over there, hasagas gvul is talking about Yerd Lumnas Chaveri, interfering with another person's livelihood. Stam, one just an interesting point. It's not an amaratzis to call it hasagas gvul. It's but it is a shame amushal. Really, hasagas gvul Minater is talking about only with property, but we also use it. We borrow the term to interfering with another person's livelihood. The second thing that the Radvad said that only what the Torah says Ar Masig Vul is only talking about somebody who's an actual Masig Vul, but somebody who's Yered Lumnas Chaveri, who or Mikapech Parnasas Chaveri, who interferes in another person's livelihood. He doesn't get the terrorist curse. So everything's Bashkacha Pradas because I would never have remembered this if it wasn't yesterday's Shiur Tanya. But in yesterday's Shiur Tanya, the Alter Rebbe Akdama says, "Lazo is not varuchim shalanoshim frosim and akuvim b'shem whatever the lashon is." It's talking about the publishers of the Tanya, and in all the haskamis over there to the Tanya and many Sfarim from that time, there was a special warning and a special curse from everyone who gave haskama and everyone who wrote Agdama not to reprint it because the whole sugi of intellectual property and halacha is maybe we'll get there, but it's not so pashut. So they want to be mechazik. So the Alter Rebbe also adds. He says, "I want to point out that nobody should steal the work of the publishers and should publish the Tanya on their own." Says the Alter Rebbe, "Yeski mikra maladibra akasev arur masig volre ehu arur by klala by nidoy by chas v'shalim." And so on. Then he said, I also want to add that you shouldn't do it. But you see that the Alter is saying that Arur Masig Vul Re'eu, person who is Masig Vul Re'eu when in their Parnasa also gets also come labor Arur. So unlike their advice. Okay. Moreover, it's clear that the Isser of Hasakas Gvul by Karka is only in Eretz Yisrael. It's a Sifri, it's a Rambam, that's the Halach and Shulchan Aruch, and over here in the Alter Rebbe. However, we can ask ourselves the same question when the Torah says Arur Masig Vul Re'eu. The curse for being Masig Vul Re'eu, is it only in Eretz Yisrael or is it also in Chutz La'aretz? In Chutz La'aretz, it's not an Isser Deraisa Hasagas Gvul. It's quote unquote only Geniva, only Gazela. Do you get the curse? So the Aruch HaShulchan, he says nearly, he says Miswar Nafsheh, he doesn't have a raya for it, but he says, yeah, even Chutz La'aretz, you got the curse. It's very, very mustaber. I want to say it's very, very mustaber. It makes a lot of sense. You look in the Mefarshim over there in the Ebenezer and the Mizrahi and whatever the basic Mefarshim Mikra in Dvarim over there in Perek of Zion, all the Kollel Haggers and Harevel, they explain what's this whole list of curses that were given over there. Arur, Mashka, Iver Badarach, Arur, Makla, Avavima, etc., etc., etc. It's all things that are done in secret. There are various that a person does. They think nobody gets away with it. So it comes the Torah tells you that you should know that somebody who does this, the Eibishter sees everything, and you're not getting away with it. So if that's the reason why the Torah gave you a special curse specifically for this, so L'maynaf Kaminis in Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, at the end of the day, somebody who was Masig Vul Re'eu, they did it secretly. Obviously, if they did it in the public brazen fashion, that would in Chutz La'aretz would only be an Isser of Gzela, not of Geniva, then maybe takanat. They don't get the Ur. But if they do it in privately, they do it in secret. The Torah was makpid on this. So, l'chera, what the Aruch HaShulchan says, b'pshitas, makes a lot of sense. Okay, and that's it for Sif Lamed Beis. Sif Lamed Gimel is our main topic. Metzer shehechziku beirabim asur lakalkali. The borders of public property that the public has taken possession of may not be undermined. In other words, if a person, if the public uses a certain pathway, nobody has a right to come and close it off or repurpose it for another use. Just go over the sugi b'kitzer. It's a Mishnah in Maseches Bava Basra. Daf Tzadik Testament Beis says, "Mi she'haisa derech harabim miveres l'teich sadeyu." Somebody who had a public walkway, public path, public road, going through his private field, his private property, not lavinasan lahem and he took it away from them, and in exchange gave them another. Don't walk here. I'll give you another route around the back. Says the Mishnah, Masha nasan nasan. What he gave to them is very good. Is good. Thank you very much. But he doesn't get his original path back. So now the public has two roads. Frek the Gemara, why doesn't he get? Why doesn't he get what? Why doesn't he get back his own property? Especially he gave them something else in return. And the Gemara gives three answers. Amar Rav Zvid, Mishmei de Rava, Gzeira Shamayit Lahem Derech HaKalasin. It's a Gzeira that you might give them a very roundabout, crooked path. And Chazal were very worried about Takanas Harabim, the Rishonim explained. So therefore, they made a Gzeira that doesn't work. It doesn't matter even if you give them a straight path, even if you give them a good path, because of a Gzeira Shema Yitl Lahem Derech HaKalasin, it doesn't help. Rav Misharshia says, no, it's not a gzeir. It's taka. It's only if he gave them a crooked roundabout way that doesn't work. Their Rabbim have a chazaka, and we're worried about the takana of their Rabbim. So therefore, we say that what he gave them, they get to keep, but what he wants to take back for himself, he doesn't get back. According to Rav Misharshi, if he taka gave them a straight path, a good path, so then it's good. Then it's a fair exchange. Rav Ashi Amar kol min atzah derech hakalazini. Any other path that he would give them is a derech hakalasin, is by definition a roundabout way. Why? Because there are people who live here, there are people who live here. Every road, every path that you give is going to be closer to someone or farther from someone else. So, b'meila, there's no such thing as a straight path, as a path that's perfect for everyone. So you gave them a new path, it doesn't work for their Rabbim. There are shmam over there in the Gemara. Excuse me. The Rashbam over there in the Gemara explains that there's no nafkamina lalacha between Rav Ashi and Rav Zvid. They're saying the same thing in different words. Just to summarize, very because let's just we have two shittas. That means Rav Ashi and Rav Zvid and Rav Misharshia. According to Rav Ashi and Rav Zvid, anytime the public has a path that they use in the private property, you can't take it away from them. Once hechziku by rabbim, which we'll discuss what that means in a minute. Once they have a certain chazaka on it, you can't take it away from them, even if you give them another equally good path, another equally convenient, equally useful. It's not crooked. It's not full of rocks. It's not unpaved. Whatever. According to Rav Misharshia, no. If you could talk and make a fair, even trade with the public. Okay. What's the halacha? Is it like Rav Zvid or like Rav Misharshia? So, in the Shilos Chuvas, Nishal David from David Oppenheim, one of the great Paiskim of the 16th, 17th century, lived in Germany. He's very famous for being very wealthy and having a very big Sfarim collection, but he was also a very important Paisik. So he has a tshuva about this, and he writes, he's a mechiach because the Rishonim are not so clear, but he's Mechiach that a lot of Rishonim, the Rif and the Rosh and the Rambam, are paskin like Rav Zvid and Rav Ashi, that even if you give them equally good path, it doesn't help. And the Tur writes as a beferish, and okay, and that's a mashmash of the Shulchan Aruch, and the Alter Rebbe writes this beferish as well, as we will see in a minute. Okay, let's read the Alter Rebbe inside and see how this all comes out. Siflam Gimel Metzer Shehichziku Bei Rabim Asur Lakalkale. A metzer, a path, a border. Literally, the translation of is border, and that's how they translate it here. But it means the borders of a path. That Hichziku Bei Rabim, that the public made a chazaka on by using it for an extended period. And well, we'll see how they made a chazaka on in a minute. Asur Lakalkale. It is forbidden to mess it up, to take it away from them, to close it off, to build on it, to plow over it, to pave over it, whatever it is. Needless to say, we're talking about Matzah Shechziko Bayabim. In any case, there's a public hefker land over here that the public has been using. It doesn't belong to anyone. Nobody can show up one day and shut it down. That's pashut. But even if it's on a private property, but the rabbim hechziku bay, with the owner's knowledge and consent, meaning they saw that the public was using it. Ro v'shasku, and they were quiet. Umachlu, and they were meichel. Now there is a little bit of a discussion on this in Achayim, but it's clear in the Alter Rebbe that the owners don't have to give explicit permission, but it's enough if they give implicit permission by just observing what's going on. V'shasku umachlu. If they were quiet, they were meichel. Zachu harabim b'matana zu b'chazaka shehechziku ba behilucham. The public are zeiche in this gift that they received by walking on it. That's how they make a chazaka, just by walking on it. Again, also a little bit of a discussion in Chaynim, Mashmas, and certain Rishonim, how to make a chazaka. If you actually have to do something, an action to make a chazaka on the property, but the shita of the Rashba, based on Mashmas and Gemirah, and stimas of other Paiskim and the Shulchan Aruch, and first in the Alter Rebbe, that behilucham, by walking on it, that's how they make a chazaka. And the owner is not allowed to come back and steal it from them. Why not? Why is he stealing it from them? Just explain. It was a matana. You gave it to them as a gift. I give something to you as a gift, so there's there's no backsies. Once I give you something as a gift, I give it to the public as a gift. It belongs to them. You can't steal it back from them. Now, basically explain that what I mean, it belongs to the public, it belongs to them, meaning that they have the right to walk on it. It doesn't mamish belong to them, that they could come build a park on it or something else. They can use it for storage, but they have a right that they were given as a gift to walk on it. Now, the Alter Rebbe tells us a bigger chiddush, and if you look in the Gemara and the Shulchan Aruch, you'll see that the Alter Rebbe brings these dinim in the exact opposite order that they appear in the Gemara and in Shulchan Aruch. In Shulchan Aruch, we first have the din of Misha Haisa Darach Harabim Meveres B'Teich Sadeyu, which is what we're about to read in the Alter Rebbe, and then the Gemara explains why, and what's the reason why Misha Haisa Darach Harabim Meveres B'Teich Sadeyu. Then you're not allowed to switch with them because Matzah Sheichziku B'Rabim Masur L'Kalkali. The Alter Rebbe brings it in the opposite order, and interestingly, the Aruch HaShulchan follows the same seder. But anyway, the Alter Rebbe was first. That first he tells you the way the Alter Rebbe is arranges things. The seder goes layer by layer. It tells you first a smaller chiddush and then a bigger chiddush and then a bigger chiddush. First tells you matzah sheichziku beirabim b'chlal. This is the yesod. Because there's such a rule of matzah sheichziku beirabim, it's excuse me, it's asr lekalkale. So I see there's a question in the chat. I hope we'll have time to get to it. If I don't get to it, then you can always message me after and or message on the group. Then he tells you a bigger chiddush. Not only matzah sheich zika b'rabim from a public, from the public, even if it's from private property. Now tells you an even bigger chiddush. Even if it was from private property and it was given to them as a gift by mistake, still the rabbim have a schus in this path, and they're not allowed. You're not allowed to take it away from them. But again, let's see it inside. Even if the mechila that the owner was meichel to the public was by mistake. For example, somebody had a public pathway going through his property and he plowed over it, which you know you're not allowed to do. So he said, okay, so I'll give them another path in exchange. What's the mistake here? He's obligated to give them back. He thought he was giving them a new path in exchange for the one that he plowed over, but it's a mistake because he has to give them back the original path that he plowed over. Even if the second path is better and straighter and nicer and cleaner and more convenient than the first one. Because he's not able to switch with the rabbim without getting everyone's consent. Because maybe there are those who prefer the first path, even though the second path is nicer, it's straighter. The first path is more convenient for them. It's closer to me. So even though, okay, fine. I'll give you back the first one. So, but giving back the second one that I gave you by mistake. Comes the third chiddush. No, even if you gave it to them by mistake, you gave it to them willingly. So now the rabbim were zeich in it, and you can't take it back. Because even though an individual is not zeiche in such a manner, you gave somebody something by mistake. They're not zeiche. It was a mistake. Give it back. Rabbim zachu. The public is zeiche in such a manner. Since melechatchila they were zeiche with the owner's knowledge and consent. And if you also read the Alter Rebbe carefully, you'll see that the Alter Rebbe puts together Rav Zvid and Rav Ashi's svaris into one svar, just like the Rashbam told us that they're not arguing. They're the same. Saying the same thing in different words. The Alter Rebbe says, Shema yesh mi shechafetzim b'rishayim. Shema, it means it's a gzeir. The reason why you're not allowed to do it is because maybe there are those who want, and therefore there's a gzeir that you're not allowed to do this in any case, because maybe there are going to be some people who it's not going to work out for. And why would it not work out for? Because that's Rav Zvid's shita. Gzeir Hashem yitin lahem derech hakalasin. And why would it not work out for them? Because like Rav Ashi says, kol minatzad derech hakalasin. Okay. If it wasn't clear, it's easier to see this inside. And it is written up, so you can see it there. In any case, let's discuss some practical things. You have a shortcut on your property that people use to cut across from one street to another. It makes it easier to whatever. It saves them time from walking all the way around the street. Are you stuck forever, or is there anything you can do? Do you have any way out? So, number one, this is Davar Pashat. The whole thing only begins if, like the Alter Rebbe says, Ra'u v'shasku u'machalu. If you didn't say anything. So first of all, don't get into such a situation. You have to make a machal right away. Put up a sign that this is private property, and the owner reserves the right to close it off at any time. Shouldn't if it's not bothering you, then Taka shouldn't you should let people use it. But there's a possibility that eventually you're gonna wanna close it off and take it back. So don't get into such a situation. Now, let's say you find yourself already in such a situation. So obviously, every situation is has to be taken on a case by case basis. But I'm just going to mention a few stadim that Achronim Paiskim bring. What are potential ways out? And again, Lamaisa, it's not to be relied on Lamaisa. Lamaisa, it needs to be decided on a case by case basis by a competent uh, Mekashailas Chacham, as the lesson is. Okay, number one, there are those who say that if al pidina de malchusa, there is no halacha of Metzer Sheikh Ziku Rabim, or the Rabbim were not zeicha in a certain situation, then we follow the din de malchusa. Who says this? The Chachma Shleiman, the Agon Cheshen Mishpat over here in Simon Ayin Zayin. He's been saying that he wrote a long tshuva about it. However, you do have to be mevar because even if you're going to go with this, there is in many jurisdictions, to the little bit of research that I did, a law similar to Matzah Sheikh Zekub Rabim. It's called prescriptive easement, and okay, it has different tanaim and different dinim, and it could take many years, 10 years, but in certain cases, even al pi din de malchusa, you're stuck. Similarly, some Achronim write that if you have it's registered by the government that this land belongs to you, you could say that the reason that you weren't Meicha is because you relied on the fact that I have proof, I have documents that this belongs to me. So maybe you want to rely on that. The Marsham says this. Okay, there is such an opinion. The Chachma Shleima says another point that the whole din of Metzer Sheikh Ziku by Rabbim is only if it's Rabbim, it's the majority of the people in the city. But if it's only a minority, then it doesn't apply. According to this, is basically no such thing as Metzer Sheikh Ziku by Rabbim ever. Because in what place, unless it's a tiny little shtetl, that's going to be the Roiv Anshe Amakim, it doesn't happen. Something that 10, 15, 100 people use, and you're saying that the city there are thousands of people, so it's not Chazika B'Rabbim. So the truth is, in the Shalas HaTshuvas Minchas Yitzchak, Chilek Zayin Siman Kuf Lamed Ches, he says he learns that the Chachma Shleima is saying it's not dafka if it's a majority or a minority. The Chachma Shleima is saying is dafka if it's only 2 or 3 people, then it's not a rabbin. But if it's more than 2 or 3 people, then that's already tough. Lanius Daiti, it's difficult to learn like this in the Chachma Shleima, but what the Minchas Yitzchak is saying is very, very mistaber, and he brings rayas from the Gemara, from the Sma. It's very mistaber, and he tells that that's what the Chachma Shleima is saying, and it could be that's what the Chachma Shleima is saying. So, Lamaisa, it doesn't seem like there's enough to rely on over here to say that it's not a majority of the city. Okay. Another thing, the Piskei Tshuva over here in Sifkat Beis and Siman Shinai and Sifkat Beis brings from the Shalas Tshuvas Beis Ephraim. He says, whenever you have umdana de muchach, something something tangible evidence that I never left it here for the public to use. I have a piece of property that I'm planning on building on it. Obviously, I'm planning on building on it. The Raila people are using it. Why? Because I don't live here. Because I don't care. But it's not because I'm meichel. There's an umdan over here that I'm not meichel to give this away to the public to be a public pathway forever and ever. So then there's no you can't say that I'm meichel because there's an umdan that I wasn't meichel. Okay. And there, basically, this concept, the Achronim take it in a few different directions, but it all comes down to the same basic idea that when there's svara, umdana, a strong umdana, a strong grounds to say that it's not I was never Michael. Either it's because um, I wasn't losing anything by having people walk here. So if it's in they're walking across my field, so I should be Meicha. I should make a protest because I can't plant here. I can't plow here. The fact that I wasn't Meicha, so it must mean that I'm Meichel, that I'm giving it that I'm giving it away to the public. But if it's just an empty area that it never should have bothered me, and now all of a sudden it bothers me because I decided I want to build an extension to my house and I want to use this. So you could say that I was never Meichel. Okay, and similar things like that. Like I mentioned before, Elohim Rashi Prakim, Be'ezer Sheikh and Shchakim. This is not Yosem Mashakirsi Lefnechem Kasovkan. There's more things have to be decided on a case by case basis, but just putting it out there that there are different um, tzadim, different things that Achronim say that could be ways that even somebody who's in such a situation can take their property back. Okay, and now to finish Sif Lamadal and to make a big sim on Hilchos Gezeilah U'Geneivah. Misha Nizkar Shaganav Meyachad Mishnai Ve'eni Yedei Me'ezeh Mehem. Somebody who remembered that he stole something from one of two people, but he does not know from whom. Ubalatzes Yedei Shamayim, and he wants to be Yotze Yedei Shamayim, meaning Maker Adin. What's the halacha? Somebody comes to two people and says, I stole from one of you, Reuven and Shimon. I don't know from who. And the two of them also don't know. So the Me'ikar Adin, he puts it down and they split it. However, if he wants to be Yotze de Shamayim, Yishalim Lazeh v'Lazeh. He should pay both of them. However, somebody borrowed money from one of two individuals, and he does not know from whom, and they also don't remember, they're also not making any kindness. So then he puts it in front of them. Even Latzis Yidei Shamayim, you don't have to pay both of them, they can split it. If he stole or borrowed from one of them and he doesn't know if he returned it, and again you want to be Yitzidei Shamayim, so then you do have to return it again. But if he doesn't know Bechlal if he stole or borrowed, and the other person is also not saying Bari li pater aflas is shamayim ve'im halata bari shalav imenu. If the other person is saying, I know for a fact that you borrowed money from me, and the other and you're saying, I don't know, I don't remember, I borrowed money from you, but I may have paid it back, I may have not, I don't remember. Bari v'shema bari yadif chayiv latzis yidei shamayim. You have to be yidei shamayim and pay. Okay, it's not exactly bari v'shema bari yadif, but when you have to be yidei shamayim, you have to pay back even though you don't remember. And so too it is in every similar situation. And with that, we conclude Hilchos Gezeilah U'Geneivah, Baruch Hashem, and